Germany, the place where Adidas and Puma originated, and because of their sheer quality and craftsmanship in the shoes they produce, they went on to dominate the markets in the West. And for today's story, we're going to especially focus on the USA because there lives a protagonist who would go on to rival these German shoemakers, and that man is Phil Knight. After having finished his MBA in 1962 from Stanford, Phil was thinking about his next big step in his career. One day he was thinking about the German shoes which were dominating the sales in the USA, and being a track runner himself, he saw that those shoes were highly expensive but yet not so subtle for track runners, simply concluding that there was room for improvement. So during this time he also heard about some Japanese shoes which were much cheaper and better than the German counterparts. So, skeptical, Phil visited the Onitsuka Tiger Company in Japan and quickly made a deal with the Japanese manufacturer to be the distributor for their shoes in the USA. But Phil was not strong in the technical aspects of shoemaking, and he was in need of someone for that, so he approached his track coach Bill Bowerman, who was known for making changes in designs and modifying shoes for the needs of athletes, and he felt it was just a perfect partnership, and ergo, they both became partners, and in 1962, Blue Ribbon Sports Company was founded. Thanks to the track connections that they were able to get athletes to wear these shoes in sports conventions, and Knight also saw that it was the best place to sell their shoes as well. So he would load up his truck with shoes and sell them in these spots. By 1966, BRS had opened its first retail outlet, but there was a problem. During this time, their relationship with the Japanese manufacturers grew contentious as they were trying to eliminate the distributors in USA and launch their own line of shoes, literally trying to jeopardize their franchise. So, Phil terminated their contract and started making his own shoes, outsourcing the manufacturing to be in Asia and importing it back to USA. From then, Nike only doubled its revenue every single year.
Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money!
Its formula was pretty simple: make high quality products and offer them at a good price and keep innovating. The one important reason that they were able to compete in aspect of price with the German shoes as Adidas was because Adidas was still manufacturing their shoes in Europe where labor was costly, while Phil moved the latter to Asia where labor was much cheaper. Cool. And then innovation. This was taken over by Bill Bowerman. One of the greatest shoes he ever produced was a waffle shoe design, which Bowerman created by using the imprint of Waffle Maker, and it was one of the biggest success of Nike shoes. Eventually in 1978, the company was rebranded from BRS to Nike with the famous swoosh symbol that still exists today. The immense growth that they have seen over the years is simply over the line. And how do we know that? Well, today Nike's market cap stands at $188 billion thanks to its IPO in 1980. And also, Phil Knight's net worth is a whopping $47 billion today. Nice, that's really awesome. From selling shoes on his truck to building the world's largest shoe company, and not to mention, he's a billionaire now. But hold on a second. Why hasn't Adidas achieved the same? Why not Puma? In fact, they were formed much earlier than Nike, right? And as I told before, they were already dominating the markets when Nike only came into existence. And to overshadow that, look at the difference in market cap between Adidas and Nike today. Its market cap stands at $53 billion compared to $188 billion of Nike. I mean, that's something. That's like Usain Bolt winning the 100 meters race in 2008 Olympics. Just look at the gap. Look at the gap. So I thought, why don't we look into the business of Nike that puts it ahead of its competition and how it changed its strategy and adapted over time to establish itself as the largest shoe company in the entire world. The early strategy which took Nike to $1 billion in sales. Initially, Nike kept things very simple, create great product, offer it at a great price, and these two factors made Nike noticeable in the market. But according to Phil Knight, what put Nike ahead of its competition was innovation in the lab. Nike was popularly known for its new designs and product innovations. It was simply great at it. And all these things, along with some athletes wearing its shoes in events, pushed Nike to $1 billion in sales. And all this was even before Nike started its ad campaign in 1980. But then, things weren't always good either. The downfall. Once Nike reached its $1 billion in sales mark, it went on to continue its old strategy. It has worked so far, so it should do well. But then sales started to slow down, and to make things worse, Reebok came into the market. In 1980, the aerobics market was huge and Reebok came in with a sleek design and took over the sales. While Nike's shoe was functionally superior, its poor design cost its sales. Something was clearly wrong. By mid-1980s, the signals were even loud and clear. 1985, Nike saw 2 red quarters in that year, and 1987 its sales dipped by $200 million. You get the picture. So Phil basically came to the conclusion that great product, good price, and innovation was just not enough anymore. So what did Nike do? It's actually pretty elaborate, but I'm gonna keep it short instead of boring you with some long stories. Phil understood the key concept that to have great product and price was good for a company to get started, to gain initial momentum. But for a big company such as Nike itself, it just wasn't enough. So after long reasoning and debate, Phil came up with the conclusion. He simply changed Nike from being a product-oriented company to marketing-oriented company. In fact, early stages Nike stood ahead of its competition by innovating products, but now it's changed to innovation in advertising. And guess what? Nike still today has stuck to that very strategy. But then, how it came to this conclusion is much more of an interesting story itself. In fact, the very question that Phil asked himself is the reason Nike is so big today. The 2 golden questions of all businesses for that matter: who the consumer is and what the brand represents. So let me put this into perspective. In early days, Nike was a running shoe company and all of its employees were runners, so they understood the consumers very well because Nike and the consumers were one and the same. Later, when Nike expanded to basketball and football, it hired similar people and it worked well. The same thing again. There was an understanding of what was needed and the same was provided. But when you look at the sales chart of Nike, the top portion consists of the core consumers, the people in the top of the sport like Lebron James, Michael Jordan. And the middle part of the chart consists of the people who use the shoes in the weekend jogs you call them. And then came the bottom chunk of the pyramid, which was literally everybody else. And from this chunk came almost 60% of the entire sales of Nike, almost 60%. That's something. And they don't even use it for actual sport. On the contrary, everything that Nike did was only aimed at the top of the pyramid. Of course, many would wear those shoes because their hero, Michael Jordan or Cristiano Ronaldo, wore it, but definitely not all. And it was an epiphany moment for Nike. So, knowing all this, what changed? Well, thousands of hours were spent collecting data about customer needs, specifications, color preferences, design changes, you name it, everything. All these data was collected from stores, fed into computers and analyzed, and then conclusions were made. Great, right? Now that you know the needs of customers, you fulfill them. But it's just not enough. In fact, the whole point of doing this was not just to fulfill the needs, but also to appeal to this bottom chunk of everybody else which Nike had ignored so far. And that's where Nike's advertising strategy comes into play. And I know we can all agree that Nike's ads are all one of a kind and they have something to it. I don't know, something kind of unique. So how does Nike bring that connection? Number 1, focus. The first thing that comes to mind when we think about Nike is obviously sports and fitness, right? And the reason for that is its sheer focus on its goal to be the best sports and fitness company, and that it articulates in its ads. So every ad that Nike makes is completely fixated on that one goal. Number 2, emotion. Remember those times we used to go to a local shop and keep going back to him even though there would be better shops around him? As Nike's founder Phil explains it, it's called emotional connection. Nike tries to somehow simulate the same through the emotion of sports and fitness. And that's why you see that a lot of Nike ads don't even represent any product at all, but still they leave an immense impact on all of us. And if we do think back, all we can do is just associate Nike with nothing but sports and fitness. So they're pretty good at it. And not to mention adding our favorite athlete to it clearly tops it all. But given that it's a well-known thing that all brands do, I think I'll just leave that to you. Now, obviously I've got to say, since I started writing this script and working on this video, my respect for Nike as a sports company has gone beyond words to explain. Or maybe it's just an emotional connection after all. Let me know what you guys think, and consider subscribing if you're into great stories of business and finance. If not, still do though, because we're trying to reach 1 million by end of 2022. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.